All right, so once you've established a meeting, scheduled a meeting, you can go ahead and open it once again by coming to the Canvas course that you're a TA for, clicking on the WebEx button, and then clicking Host. Now, note that this is going to take a couple seconds to open. At this point, you might be prompted to actually download the desktop version of WebEx. As you can see, my version of WebEx is trying to figure out how to open that external client, and here we are. You'll first be prompted to identify the audio source that you would like to use. So you could either use your phone or use your computer. If you have issues with your internal computer microphone, highly suggest using your phone, but again, that's entirely up to you. You have the option here to test that speaker, so as you can see, my built-in microphone is good, so I'm great to go there. You can also make sure that you can hear by clicking the test button here. So in this choice, I'm going to call using my computer, and that means that I'm automatically connected. Now, if at any time I want to mute myself, I can click this mute button here, or I can also enable my video by clicking on the video button, hello, and then turn it off here. A couple other features that are worth noting. I'm just going to walk through the navigation bar up at top. So there are some preferences here. You can check through each of these. They're pretty self-explanatory, but you have the option to identify when you are alerted to certain activities. You can disable certain tools in a session if you don't plan to use them. And then you have this option to choose your display settings. So if you want to go for better performance or better image quality, it defaults to better image quality. If you have some Wi-Fi issues, maybe better performance is the way to go. File gives you the opportunity to open poll questions, open chat. You also have the option to save any items that are produced in the course of the training. So if you have chat, a poll that you use, if you use questions and answers, those items you would be able to download and save. Edit, you have the option to annotate on a light background or a dark background. You can clear all pointers, so we'll get into this concept of students giving feedback. So that's an option here. Sharing your desktop, a file, an application. If you use PowerPoint or Keynote, that might be something to consider using here. There's also the option to share the whiteboard. The whiteboard is really great because you can annotate here, so you can type anywhere on the screen. If you wanted to actually be able to do freeform or lines, you could do that here. And then, of course, you can clear these as well. So the whiteboard is a great option for collaborative work as well. If you have something on a web browser, you could share that here as well. Your view, of course, is how you configure your layout here. The panels are essentially the different components of your WebEx screen, right? So you have the participants panel up top here on the right. You have a chat panel that is on the bottom. I'll show you that in a second. And then, of course, you have this whiteboard panel here. So anything that you might need to change, you would do through this view option. Audio is just for you to change your audio source. Participant, so this is interesting because you can mute, you can unmute, you can mute all, you can unmute all. So the first two options are for you personally, latter two for the students. This mute on entry means that anybody who enters is not going to be heard. They will have the option to unmute themselves unless you set that otherwise, but generally it's a good habit. You never know what's happening in the background of somebody's computer, and so just having that as an option is a good default. You can assign privileges here. And so this allows attendees to do a couple different things, right? So if you want them to be able to save items, if you want them to be able to annotate the whiteboard, you would do that by selecting this button here. They can view the number of attendees, who's there. They can send video. They can record the sessions individually if that's something that you want them to do. And then you can also adjust communication here. So one of the interesting things is that a default of the training session seems to be that you can allow attendees to chat with the host, presenter, panelists, but not all attendees. So if that's something that you want to enable, be sure to click Assign Privileges and All Attendees for chatting with all attendees in the main session, and then if you're hosting breakout sessions in those as well. So you also have the option to change your role. So if we had more participants here, this probably would allow us to click around. The other way that you can do this is by hovering over an attendee's name, right-clicking, and then changing role. So in this case, I obviously can't change a role because nobody else is here, but if there were other folks here, you could change their role. If your faculty member is there, you could give them the host, and then you would be delegated to a presenter. For the session information, again, this is where you can start a recording. You can see some information, audio, video statistics, and set up a greeting message if you'd like. Breakout sessions are here. We'll have a dedicated time to walk through those a little bit later. And then again, if you have multiple windows that you're trying to look at the same time, this is where that option would be. There are some fun features for your students to use while they're here. So you'll see these feedback buttons, as they're called, on the bottom here. They can raise their hand, which will appear here. The great thing about WebEx is that the hand will appear with a number next to it showing the order in which they raised their hand. They can also respond to a question with a yes with this green check or a no with this red X. You have the option to clear all of their feedback by using this little eraser sign here, and that will go away. They also, of course, can use emojis. They have a brilliant idea. They can indicate that. If they'd like to clap, applause, that's an option here as well. And then, of course, there's the chat panel. And so you have the option to send a message to everyone, or you can just send to various roles. So again, if you were to make that faculty member the host and you become a presenter, you would have the option to just message the host if you needed to communicate with a faculty member. There's also a fun polling option here. So you'll see that it's this little graph looking button at the bottom, and you will add a question here. So let's say, what is your anticipated graduation date? And then you'll add potential answers by clicking this little light bulb with the plus sign. So spring 2020. We can add another one, fall 2020, let's see, spring 2021, and do one more, fall 20. Oops, okay, so let's say, for instance, I made a mistake there. You can click on it, or you can also use the little edit pencil to make some changes. You have the opportunity to change the type of question, so you could make it a single answer, multiple answers, short answer. You can designate one of the answers as correct by using this little green checkbox here. You can get rid of answers, or you can move them up or down. You also have the option here to record individual responses. So if you wanted to know what answer was tied to which individual, you could click that button here. You also have the option to save it. If you have a poll question in a CSV file, you can actually upload them here as well. And then, of course, you can open the poll. It defaults to 5 minutes, but of course, you can close it before then. You can close the poll, and then you can share the poll results with the attendees. Again, if we had selected that individual results, these answers would be viewable. Same thing if we had designated one of the answers as correct, and if there was a grade element here. So we'll apply that, and then we can come back. If we wanted to edit the questions, add more. We also have the prompt here to save those questions. Now when you go to save them, we can replace this file here. It's going to ask me again because it recognizes that the format is strange. We can either save it as a group or an individual result. Save and replace, and that is our polling option. So again, you can, if you have pre-existing poll questions, you can upload them through a CSV file, or you can manually input them there. So that's a brief overview of WebEx training. Many of these features are similar in WebEx meetings. You will have a designated time where we talk about the record button and then the breakout sessions, so stay tuned for those.